Hey guys, welcome back to another StarCraft 2 weekend. Today I'm going to be continuing my StarCraft 2 weekend with another beautiful game. This is of course going to be Forge versus Stephano. There's really no need to introduce these two players as they really are out there in the actual world tournaments. Pretty top-notch players here, of course. On the bottom right side of Ohana we do have Stephano as the blue Zerg player, and on the top left we do have Forge as the red Terran player. So this is Z versus T. It's going to be one of the interesting games out there. This is a 3-set game, so I was lucky enough to get all these 3 games intact, so I'm going to be doing them all in a row. Anyways, for the channel itself, if you did notice, I did manage to release a few videos in terms of the hill climb game for the Android phone, and I did recently cover the Kerbal space program, and I made my own video in terms of landing on the moon. So if you guys have a time, like 30 minutes on your hands, just take a look at the moon landing. I did make it pretty interesting. I did add a couple of sounds and actually real live commentaries in terms of the actual moon landing. So it's pretty cool to watch. In case you guys want to kill some time, I would recommend you guys watch it. You might end up liking the actual game and giving it a go. It is pretty hard, but once you do get the hang of the actual controls, it is so far easy to play. It does have its little bit of bugs and glitches here and there, but it is a new game, so I'm sure once the 0.18 version comes out, it'll sure as hell be a hell of a lot better, because the 1.8 is bringing a lot of updates so far. So both players, ironically enough, are going for that first base expand. So Stephano a little bit ahead in terms of a second hatchery in comparison to that command center, but of course the overload is streaming across the map, so that should be scouted out. We do have that overload on the frontal map to scout out any pushes, if anything, is going to be coming up from Forge. But of course Forge isn't so far planning on that. We do have the barracks here, so he's not even planning off to wall it off or use the barracks to somehow wall off that actual ramp up itself. We do have a second barracks in place, so we do have 2 racks coming up, spawning pool of course, and for Stephano as well coming into play. So maybe a couple of Zerglings might be streaming across the map to harass Forge. You know, it really depends on how Stephano is willing to play. The second command center 3/4 of the way complete, and so far that's it. Both players zoning up very heavily. Let's just speed up the game a little bit, as nothing really special is going on. First Marine in play, more drones coming down for Stephano. We do have a 3rd barracks as well, so we do have 3 rack builds so far. I'm not sure if he's going in for that 3 racks push or 4 racks push with that actual factory, and maybe a couple of Hellions in the mix. It's really interesting to see how Forge is going to be playing that actual composition and push out. We do have both the actual extractors online as well. None of the extractors for the actual initial base, so he's not going to be really going for a tech so far. This just might be used for any standard unit production for Stephano. So nothing really happening on Stephano's end. We do have those roaches though, so maybe we should see those 2 gases coming online pretty soon to get those roaches up and ready. So here comes that famous roach push, roach aggression, but a massive bio ball here by Forge should pretty much mop this up. Of course Stephano sees that, and he's going to be retreating with his 4 or 5 roaches. There's nothing really much he can do. We do have those finally those upgrades coming online, weapons level 1, including that combat shield as well. So that should pretty much keep Stephano at bay. He is retreating, of course. He is starting to build up his 2 evolution chambers, and nothing really in terms of, we do have 4 more roaches coming online. Scan coming down to mop up those tumors to prevent that creep from spreading any further. And of course now he is going for an all-out push with those queens and those roaches backed up. Those 4 roaches did pop up, and Forge did do a little bit of kiting, but now he's going to be retreating. There's nothing much he can do, as Stephano does have the upper hand with those roaches, and he is going to lose that actual speed once he gets off the creep, so the roaches won't be able to catch up, and Forge should be able to kite these Zerglings very easily. And finally Stephano is going out for the push, and here it is. He's going to get a very good round. This should pretty much drop. That's the end of that. Forge knows it, so he does let it drop. Of course these roaches are trying to flank though in case something happened. Very slow movements though if there is no Crete for these roaches, but he did manage to wall it off really nicely. There's nothing much he can do. He's going to be obviously trying to get in a couple of bailings though, maybe morph in a few bailings if he does want to get in and do a bailing bust and bust into the actual base for Forge. Anyways, let's take a look what's happening. Both the extractors finally coming on. StarCraft, of course, keep an eye on that with his Overlord. And we do have a couple of supply depots tucked away there. Finally a factory coming into play and a starport. So we're going to have a hot swap. He is probably going to stick with the bio though if that starport is coming online. Anyways, we will see once that add-on does come down. Reactors, yeah, so it is going to be a hot swap. He is going to be sticking in a bio heavy armory as well online. So we should hopefully see a continuation of the upgrades for the actual units. Two Zerglings here, very nice play by StarCraft to make sure in case he does move forward that third base expansion that this destructible debris is going to be taken out, and of course the creep's going to be spread between all the 3 bases, so that should be good so far. Another barracks here which is going to be salvaged. I do believe he did salvage this one as well. He is really taking out these bunkers, maybe to place another bunker somewhere else, or just in general to get rid of it. There's no point in having those bunkers, as in case a bailing bust does come through, it's going to be pretty much mop up and push through those bunkers and supply depots. So in a way it is sort of salvaging those resources. I don't know, he does have a little bit over harvested here. I don't know why he doesn't move them down there though, but very, very over harvested here. Forge really should move those SCVs somewhere else. I don't know why he doesn't move them to the secondary base. Maybe start expanding forward that third base, but he isn't doing that at all. So far he is just really concentrating on getting that build as early as possible. Finally a push out is coming, so Forge is really on the aggressive end, not going for that third base at all. We do finally have those bailings coming into place, so that should pretty much take care of this bio build. The question is, will he see these bailings coming in? This is it, this is the question. He needs to see those bio bailings coming in. A very nice run by the third bailing, but should mop up pretty much the rest of these units and composition. With no siege tanks in play, it's really hard to have any, you can say, advantage with this composition by StarCraft. Who have a Zergling. Sorry, my voice is a little bit out. I am having a slight little cold. So anyways, the actual composition for StarCraft makes it really hard for Forge to do anything, especially if he doesn't have that siege line up, and being able to push out and reinforce his actual bio units with any tech or siege or maybe even banshees at all. So he is really going for a really bio heavy build. We do have 5 racks in play, out of which 3 of them are having reactors, so it is a double marine push. And of course this starport is producing that single medevac, though he did leave that reactor for his actual barracks again. So really going on that single reactor isn't really very efficient to buy Forge, though. I mean, he should at least, I mean, that single starport without the reactor very efficient. With this many buy units in play, he at least needs two buy units. Here comes that push by StarCraft. 2 bailings though, not very effective. We do have more bailings morphing in. That's what I was saying. StarCraft doesn't know that that's not very effective, especially with this heavy bio build. He needs that siege tech to be finished though, not completed yet, so he won't have that advantage. These bailings will probably morph in before that siege tech gets completed, and he will pretty much devastate this bio build, even though it's nicely spread out by Forge to prevent any of that damage from happening though. Again, the tank on the high ground probably going to be sieging up here, and finally here comes that push. That push is coming in very aggressively though. Those Zerglings should pretty much be able to come up. The STD is being pulled off the line to prevent any damage from happening and to sort of absorb some of that attack and damage by those units. So far it doesn't really look up for Forge, as a lot of these units have managed to drop though. We do have a couple of Marines in play, including that tank though, but nothing really he can do. He's probably going to raise this command center, which he can do. I don't know why he doesn't do it now already. Forge should raise the command center so he doesn't lose it, and he does finally siege up, so he should finally be able to counteract this actual push by StarCraft. StarCraft, of course, retreating, doesn't want to deal with the actual siege tanks, and now he should be able to move in once these infested Terrans do drop. So that's pretty much it. He needs more tanks in play. A little bit too late for Forge though. He didn't really switch into that siege tank early on in the game, so nothing really much he can do. Of course, we do have the level 3 upgrades coming in for StarCraft, while Forge is still on 0 upgrades for his techs. We do have 2 to 1 for his Marines bio build, and that's pretty much it. Now he is trying to reinforce this position here. Probably going to be trying to keep those tanks rolling in though, but with just 1 factory though, not really still reliant on mech at all, including the starport is not producing again, so nothing really much he can do. He could maybe build 1 Banshee and harass all these overlords around the map that are giving a really good key, you can say, scouting advantage for StarCraft. Again, he is on that 4th hatchery already, so very advantageous for Stephano here, as he does have that mineral line. This is pretty much catching up with those mules. He should be able to catch up though. So let's take a look at the units lost. Resources 3,000 to 5,000. Really Forge really behind here though. Still only 2 tanks. If any push comes out by Stephano, he should pretty much be able to mop that up. He's keeping all these units in the back side of his third base, keeping it hidden in case any orbital scan does come down. He doesn't want to give away what his unit composition is to make Forge being able to counteract that composition pretty easily. So he is still going for that Zergling, Baling, Roach mix, and it doesn't look up for actually Forge though. If he does manage to siege up and push up right before that push does come in, he will be able to push this off, but it's a little bit too late though. By the time the tanks siege up, they will pretty much be mopped up though. But Stephano does decide to retreat, giving him that key advantage though. He is finally going to be pushing away that creep, which he does need to push and pull back. He's going to be, of course, retreating to that siege line as soon as he can. Then Festus in play. They're going to be placing down those fungals. Very, very effective in terms of taking care of those bio units. Again, not very aggressive. We do have a couple of Ultralisks again into play by Stephano. So, really doesn't look up for Forge at all. So far, upgrade-wise, tech-wise, everything is looking up for Forge here. Again, a siege line is being moved down. We do need more tanks though. He does have 1 tank here that could be moved down again, so he is trying to mop up that creep from being able to spread out. More bio should be in production. Again, we do have that command center. Again, where is that command center? Here it is. That 4th command center is in production. He's trying to concave and do a little bit of a surround. Of course, that didn't work out. We do have a couple of bio units in the back. Very fungal, nice fungal placement by Stephano. He is moving in. Pretty much surrounds the rest of the units. A very nice concave, pincer movement. He should pretty much crush and mop up the rest of these units. A couple of bio units here being able to survive. He did load up a couple of them on the actual medevacs. He's going in for that base, and Forge knows that, so there's nothing really much he can do except have a couple of those siege tanks to try to prevent that push from coming forward. Maybe he could be able to move in those bio units, as a couple of these medevacs should be able to heal up the rest. The scan comes down. This should pretty much be mopped up though. But again, very effective by Stephano, keeping that third base down again. Again, the mineral line is down, but look at that ridiculous creep. It's literally everywhere. Nearly everywhere. It's all the way towards Forge's base, so there's nothing really much you can do. Of course, the tanks that are being in the siege line throwing down those artillery shots are pretty much doing splash damage, of course, to their own units again. So not very effective in terms of that tank. We do have a little bit of creep being thrown down here to prevent any expansion for that 4th base, but I don't believe Forge is going to be even thinking about that, and that's pretty much it. He's going to be streaming through now, and Forge should see that there's no way he can recover from this. Stephano now keeping on the aggressive end, coming down with more Ultralisks that should be able to absorb the damage and mop up the rest of the units that Forge has. Forge, of course, streaming across the map with a couple of SCVs to try to prevent from that being from that Ultralisk line pushing forward into his base to try to keep those mineral lines going. But so far he's pretty much harvested out. Forge sees that, he calls it a GG, and this is it for the first game between Forge and Stephano. Of course, Stephano really proving to be very effective. Forge unfortunately not switching to his mechs and providing that backup siege line for his units before pushing out in the middle of the game, that being his Achilles heel. And of course the match did go down to Stephano. As always, happy gaming guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and see you guys in game 2. Bye.